Hello there, this is Being God's Obedient Servant channel. Today's lesson, we're going to be doing 2 Kings chapter 17. Only doing one chapter tonight. It's going to be a little long chapter, and there's going to be quite a bit to go into it, so I'm just going to do the one. Trying to also plan out future chapters, so there's no stopping a video in the middle of a story between chapters, and just also trying to make sure the videos don't go too long. We all know how winded I can be, but anyways, if you're new to this, you just clicked on this channel. It's the Bible study channel. I go through the King James Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, in order. I don't like to skip around or anything else like that. I don't like to jump from verse to verse to verse because, like I've said before, you can make the Bible say whatever you want it to say when you do stuff like that. So, anyways, go ahead and jump right on into this and get started here. There's some goody stuff in this one. So, chapter 17, verse 1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hosea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser. Did I say that right? Shalmaneser? Let's go Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hosea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hosea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt. Yeah, if that messes you up, it's like, what? It's like, yeah, So was actually a name. If it messed you up like it did me at first, I'm like, sent messengers to So, king. It never occurred to me that could be someone's name, but yeah. King of Egypt's name is So. I don't know if that came from the so suck my toe little thing that used to happen. Your little when I was in school, that was when somebody would say so, we would say that. Anyways, maybe I'm just showing my age with that one. Maybe they're still doing it. I don't know. Yeah, anyways, continue on. And brought no presents to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. So once again, going back to the lesson of passing children through fire. That was the breaking point with God, because they had been doing evil in the sight of the Lord, but now they're worshiping false gods and passing children through fire. So, that's God's main deal breaker there. Like I've said before, I've sold to other people, it's like America was founded off Christian beliefs, off God's word, and the people that started America, I've said every part of it was based off the Bible. But now, as a nation, we're no longer following God. We're following feminism, which is Satanism. Well, we're following Satanism. Let's just put it that way. The majority of everything, is following Satanism today. They've kicked God out of the schools. They've kicked God out of everywhere else. They've kicked prayer out. trying to, they kick the 10 Commandments out of courtrooms, stuff of that nature. I think there's some courtrooms that actually kept them in there. They're trying to say separation of church and state, this, that, and the other. So you can't have that, blah, blah, blah. And from my knowledge of separation of church and state, it never meant any of that stuff. It meant that the state can't run the church and the church can't run the state. I've talked about this before, of how the Roman Catholic Church would always try to take over. You get someone, well, you learn this in the story of the Three Musketeers, how the Cardinal Richelieu was trying to become King of France. And so this is, stuff like this was happening quite often in Europe. People today, they have no clue about, this stuff actually happened, but it did happen quite a bit in Europe, type stuff. So they just want to make sure that was separate. And also how the kings would come in and tell the church what to tell the people, what God said. This is how the Crusades came about, and this, that, and the other. The people were misled because they would add to and take away from the Word of God, for whatever. For gold, for power, for manipulation, didn't matter what. But it's like here in America, we're no longer following God either, and we're having hard times. We're having people like right now, they're having a witchcraft option in the colleges in England or Europe, and they're trying to do that type of stuff here. Witchcraft is real. Whatever you see, I ain't gonna know about the dark arts type stuff, this, that, and the other. But we've already went through how the people of Egypt at the time could cast spells and do stuff and throw their staffs on the ground and turn it into a snake as well, and blah, blah, blah. So, this stuff exists. But, our country is starting to go back to this type of stuff. Wicca is one of the fastest growing witchcraft things, out there, which is a sin against God. It falls under witchcraft and idolatry and everything else, and we have that in droves today too. And we're going to be going through some stuff here where I'm going to get more into how these things, what's going on, and how here in America a lot of people are being misled and they don't realize it. So, anyways, let's continue on here. Verse 9. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchmen to the fenced city. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. For they served idols, whereof the Lord had said unto them, Ye shall not do this thing. Now, we know that in certain Asian cultures, they burn incense in prayer and this, that, and the other. And this is what they're meaning, burning incense in prayer. It's like, now if you use incense to scent your home or something like that, I'm pretty sure that that's not a sin to burn incense. It's why you're burning it. I know a lot of people says, well, duh, but, some people, they always want to, I don't know, it's like they want to either, they are dumb or play dumb when it comes to this. Always trying to discredit God or, whatever. You've heard the stuff about, says, well, the Bible says this, so you think this, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not what he meant. And, we've all been there trying to defend God and God's word about what it actually says and everything, and how people like to take stuff out of context to, burning incense is a sin. You burn incense, whatever. Anyways. Let's continue on here, verse 13. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Now see, this rule is to us as well. And of course, we're not under the law of the Israelites, but we're still under the 10 Commandments and the rules, and God's rules is Jesus says there's two rules. You got these, you cover everything. Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love each other as you love yourself. So, but loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul is obeying His commandments. That's part of loving God, is obeying, being an obedient servant to the Lord. Hence the name of the channel and why I always talk about stuff like this. The rules matter. We are under grace, but the rules matter. If we have no desire to follow the Father's rules, we have no desire for the Father. Honor thy father. That's why it's in the 10 Commandments. Honor, first commandment, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. There you go. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Now, having a God before God is anything you put before serving the Lord. It can even be your video games. It can be anything. It could be, if you're vain, like you want to go to the gym all the time, say, hey, look at my body, look at my muscles, or the girls and stuff where they're saying, dressing provocatively and doing all the special exercises and dieting. It's like, like the new thing now is trying to have the round butt and, this, that, and the other, and trying to put their exercises out there on the internet and stuff. All this falls under vanity. Makeup's under vanity. Dress in a certain way to impress people, that's vanity. There's so many things under vanity, and people, they've gotten lost to this. They don't know this anymore, that this stuff is all under vanity. There's a big difference between dressing a certain way because your job commands it. It's part of your job, especially if you're in a business environment of wearing a suit or something. But, it's, some people say, well, what about the Hooters girls? Well, that's dressing provocatively, and its intention is to be provocative, so that makes it a sin right there. And, we go back to, well, what's the woman supposed to do? Well, the woman's supposed to be your husband's assistant. That's what God commands. And, and if you go back to trying to say, well, what if she's not married? Well, if she's not a virgin, then she is married according to God. We have that right there. And also God says a woman that does not desire a husband and birthing children is useless in the eyes of the Lord. You're not to accept jobs or do jobs which is going to take you from God or sin against God. This is where you just walk away from those facilities, and if no one works there doing that type of stuff, then guess what? That doesn't happen. Anyways, we're going to be getting more into this stuff. I'm already jumping down a rabbit trail, getting excited about it, I guess, But yeah, we're fixing to get some more into that. So, verse 14. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers that did not believe in the Lord their God. And this is what's happening in America today. In our history, in our immediate history, most people followed God in the 1950s. Most of the country did. And most of the women. They worked at home. They were homemakers. They served their husbands. They didn't argue. They submitted and obeyed. They, were very submissive wives. They, supported their husbands. They took care of the children, take care of the home. They helped take care of the children, provide children. They took care of themselves. They weren't all this, the vanity was already starting to come into place, though. because in the movies the women were wearing makeup and stuff, so women started desiring that and everything else, and lipstick already started becoming, well, actually, by the 50s was out there quite a bit. I don't know if it was in the 50s. I know in the 60s it was the lipstick and all this other stuff. But anyways, you know, it's these being disobedient has been passed down. The 1960s was the worst one with what we call the second wave of feminism with the sexual revolution, where women just went hog wild, just disobeying God left and right, which started leading men away from God as well because of sexual pleasure, sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all this other stuff, whatever. And yeah, so the hippie movement came from that. Then the hippie movement came into the Jesus movement, where a lot of them started turning back to the Lord, and we had a big revival in that time, which led into the 80s, where the women started dressing modestly again and everything else, but it didn't last long because women like to impress men for some odd reason instead of God. And they think if they dress provocatively, even in the 1950s, women were wearing hot pants, it's, as I said, it's always been with the introduction to rock and roll and everything else. Actually, it was before even rock and roll came onto the scene. We already had the rebellious people, rebellious teenagers, and normally you can always point out, tell your kids, hey, don't be rebellious stuff. You be like that one there, which is sinning against God and this, that, and the other. Now they're the lost, and so it always helps scare the children back into obedience. Because it's like, well, you don't want to end up like that, then end up an outcast in society, because, that's what God told society to do to people like that. And he still stands that way. You're supposed to have a godly society, and you're supposed to shun the wicked and to let them know to quit being wicked. We can't support wickedness, because if we support it, we're guilty of it. Blah, blah, blah. I went through some of this stuff already before. But yeah, so it's like my parents, they were taught different stuff. They weren't taught everything in the Bible, so it wasn't taught to me. And so it just gets worse and worse down the line, where we have the people of today where the kids are abusing their own parents. There's unrest in the streets, a lot of it by youths, teenagers, yada, yada, yada. Just, it's like, we can take the same thing from Ronald Reagan, how he says, we're just one generation away from losing the Constitution. And it's the same thing. We were just one generation away from losing a godly nation, and we done lost a godly nation. And it's going to have to take the people to fight to bring the godly nation back. But the way things are today, I don't see it happening no time soon. We have too many cultures, too many different religions and everything else in the same country, which is going to bump heads. And that's why God says, if you want to live at peace, you must be with like-minded. And if you're in a city environment, this, that, and the other, with a bunch of different religions, you're not with like-minded. You're very divided, and you're always going to have problems that way. The wicked and the godly can't coexist. Islam hates everyone else, any other religion or anything else, hates Christians, hates Buddhists, hates this, hates that. So they're not going to be kosher with anyone else. Buddhist and Hindu, they don't really care that much. So it's easier to live with neighbors with stuff like that, because, well, for one, their book doesn't tell them to lie, deceive, and kill all infidels. And I said some quite peaceful and easy to coexist with and everything else, and some are violent. And especially the atheist parts, man, they're always trying to turn people away from God, from believing in stuff, calling them idiots for believing in something they can't see. And it always goes back to, well, can you see air? Can't see it, but you breathe. Anyways, let's continue on here. Verse 15. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them, and they followed vanity, and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. So there's that thing, vanity and vainness. Look at me, look at me, look at me type stuff. Dressing a certain way, especially dressing provocatively. Like, a lot of things that they're saying, well, women focusing on, like, a woman's not allowed to change her hairstyle. They do it anyways. A woman's not allowed to wear makeup. It falls under vanity, and it also falls under scarring and marking of the body. Tattoos are a sin, but people still do it because they're vain. They're like, look at my cool tattoo. So it's all falls into the same category. Men going to the gym, look at my muscles, constantly working. If you're not made that way, you don't need that stuff. But if you're doing it to impress other people, that falls under vanity. So you got to watch this stuff, because there's nothing wrong with being healthy and in proper shape. When you falls into, why are you doing it? You are to take care of the holy temple, take care of your body, not be gluttonous and this, that, and the other, and you are supposed to take care of yourself. But when you go above and beyond trying to impress people, and you can lie to everyone else, oh, I do it for me, I don't do it for, you can lie to whatever you want to, God knows the truth. So always remember that. Verse 16, and they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. See, we're doing that exact same stuff here. Like I said, the molten images and everything else, stuff that they're following to worship. Your video games, that could be something you're worshiping. If that's the main important thing in your life. Your job, making money, trying to impress other people. Like a lot of people today, they're trying to be influencers. How bad do you want to be that? Because a lot of them, they don't even think of God. God's not even a part of their thought process. Not only we're to serve God, we're also to fear God. We have to, just because we're under grace doesn't mean that we don't fear God's anger and what his wrath can be. Christians know it's like how, God gets angry enough, he could, it's something you better fear. I have to remind myself of that as well, too, because it's like God is love, but also God is wrath. And God is a just judge. And he really means it. Don't serve any other gods. Don't make no graven images. And a lot of people, their PS5 is now their graven image. They worship that thing more than anything else, or an Xbox or a Nintendo. I don't know. I'm not a video game player, very rarely. Like puzzles is one of the things I like to play, but I mentioned that before, like, Myst, Riven, Exile. Those are all like, 3 parts of the same game, but it's big puzzle games and stuff. It's fun stuff. Puzzles and everything else, work your mind. But I said that, there's nothing wrong with playing video games as long as it's not controlling your life. But you see that video of the son cussing out his parents because he's playing Fortnite. I think I remember correctly, it's Fortnite or something like that. Like, that child is already at the age of accountability. You can call him a child all you want to, but if you're at the age of accountability, it's being held against you, everything you do wrong. And that child knows what they're doing is wrong and doesn't care. They're spoiled. They only care about themselves. And the parents created that environment, so the parents are guilty of it as well. So that's a sin that the parents did. Anyways, let's continue on here. Verse 18. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. So we have to look at that. I gotta tell other people, it's like, God cast the Israelites into slavery multiple times, because they sinned against the Lord and stuff. America is due for a reset when it comes to this. It's we already see it happening. It's America stands no chance. If God's willing to do this to his own chosen people, he has no problem whatsoever walking away from America completely and letting us just implode. Maybe that's what it's going to take to get America back to God. Is just an implosion, and then the meek shall inherit the earth, as it says, and all the other people that can't do for themselves, never learned how to do for themselves, they just die off from starvation or killing each other or cannibalism or whatever else, and then the godly people are left. Who knows? Maybe that's what it's going to take. I don't know. I hope not. I hope it doesn't get that bad, but it can. And, the Israelites went through this before as well. But anyways, verse 18. Also Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. So Judah's even having a hard time right now too, because the one person that came in is not doing as the others did. So instead of, once again, they're following like what Israel was doing. And I think it was Israel before they started the passing children through fire part, though. Verse 20. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of spoilers until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord and made them sin a great sin. That's it. God can do the same thing with the Americans and any other country out there. You're never too big for your britches to lose it all. Maybe that's the start of this, all this immigration stuff going on, is God's bringing in other people to, allowing this stuff to happen to remove the inhabitants, since they don't deserve the gift God gave them. Continue on. Verse 22. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did, they departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuthath, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which slew some of them. We can look at America today. What type of lions being sent there, being slaying the people? Look at all the gangs. Look at all the crime. Look at Antifa. Look at the BLM stuff, the terrorist stuff that happened there. It's another domestic terrorist system where they just wanted to destroy and kill. It's the same type of stuff, whether it's, an animal or other people. As I said, God's going to do whatever he's got to do to get people to start acting right. And it's very effective. You can see now there's a big conservative movement starting to happen all across the country now. And even in Europe now, because even South America as well. People are tired of the crazies. So their only choice is to, get back to common sense and start doing what's right. Verse 26. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, carry thither one of the priests whom ye brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the God of the land. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. Howbeit every nation made gods of their own. We're doing that today. As I said before, we're worshiping other people. We're worshiping sports teams. We're idolizing NASCAR. We're idolizing actresses and actors and musicians and, rich people or this, that, and the other, or idolizing money. Like I said, the video game stuff or whatever else. Anything that, you put before God and doing what God tells you to do. That is your God. Just the same thing is like, God commands you to depart. A man is to leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. If you're neglecting your wife by doing other stuff with the boys or with this or with video games or this, that, and the other, it's the same thing. It's, you're putting that stuff before God's commandments. Those are your gods. That stuff is your gods. But also you women, if you're putting anything before your husband, that's your gods. Whether it's your friends, whether it's, your TikTok bullcrap or whatever, Instagram stuff. And God forbid if you're on OnlyFans doing that garbage right there, but I want money, that money's your God then, if you're putting it before God's rules. So, it all falls into the exact same thing. So anything you put before God or before God's commandments, that's your God. You choose it more than anything. So, let's continue on here. I'm going to reread that part because I forgot where I left off at. Howbeit every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their cities wherein they dwelt. And the men of Babylon made Succoth Benoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima. Now these are false gods, of course. Let's continue on. 31. And the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvites burnt their children in fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they feared the Lord, and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. They feared the Lord and served their own gods. Hence, as I said, it's going all across America today. Even in churches today, they're doing this stuff. They're saying they fear the Lord, but they're still serving their own gods. They're not serving Him, because there's rules for the church that's not being obeyed. The Bible says a woman is to remain silent in the church and only converse through her husband. That's a commandment. I haven't been to a church my entire life that's upheld that one. Or even seen women in the church that wanted to uphold it. Minus, I went to a Mennonite church, and the women were silent during church service, but not fully in the church. So, but hey, I'm sorry, that's a whole lot better off than what the other stuff I've seen. But it was really weird, though. The women sat on the left side of the church, and the men sat on the right side. And it says a woman is to remain silent in church and only converse through her husband. How can she do that at all if she's on the opposite side of the room? I don't know. They never really said that you had to segregate, but anyways, it's on that part. I've been wanting to try out an Amish church to see how that is. I haven't done that yet. It's almost over an hour, about an hour drive away from my home to get to an Amish community. The Mennonite church was 45 minutes away, and it's a little complicated with me right now. If you know me and everything else, I got sleep apnea, I got back problems, I can't have a sleep cycle, so getting up at a certain time to be at a certain place early in the morning or whatever, it just doesn't work for me no more. And so it needs it to be local, and I just don't really have local, but I want it to be a regular thing I do all the time. But no, it's okay. Let's go off the Amish thing. The Bible even says in New Testament, a woman is to adorn a head covering, for it was woman that first sinned, and all women must adorn the shame, and a man is not to adorn a head covering. That's a commandment as well. In New Testament, a woman must dress modestly with unbroidered hair, no gold or pearls or costly array. She's not allowed to have anything fancy in her life. She's not to want to have anything fancy in her life. She's not allowed to wear jewelry. She's not allowed to wear any provocative clothing, whether it's short skirts or tight fitting. She's not allowed to change her hairstyle. It's like, yeah. And no woman I've seen really wants to uphold these rules, except people like Amish and Mennonite women. But the men in those areas, they adorn head covering, they do this, they do that, and it's like, so they expect the women to obey, but the men don't? What's up with that, There's a big difference between wearing something because you need to for work, saying you're working in the fields in the hot sun and the hat's protecting you, but when you wear it in the vehicle, or you're under shelter or shade or this, that, and the other, and you're still wearing it for no reason except just to wear it, or when you go out, the Kmart cowboys and people that used to wear the big old belt buckles and the cowboy hats and stuff, there's a big difference between wearing it in the fields or wearing a hard hat where you work construction, stuff like that, because it's needed for that environment, but it's when you still wear it because of the look or whatever, it falls into the same thing. You're sinning against the Lord because you don't care what God's got to say. People say, well, I don't think God's going to send me to hell because of blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting there like, he sentenced Adam and Eve to death for eating fruit that he told them not to eat. I think he's particular about his rules. And you're going to be your judge on Judgment Day. I said, it all depends if you know what God expects from you and you do it not. In the book of James, it says, if you know what's right to do and you do it not, you have sinned. But, it's like when you've read the word and also you look at it, it says, well, I'm not going to follow that part. I should be okay. You've just sinned when you chose not to obey the Lord. These rules are there for a reason, to help keep women from falling into OnlyFans, Instagram, and social media, and trying to be an influencer, this, that, and the other. God says a woman's job is to assist her husband. That's her job. That's supposed to be her only desire. A woman is to desire her husband, and he is to rule over her. Good luck. I've been married and divorced 3 times. Not a single one of my wives desired me. Not after marriage, they didn't. But also it says, who's the husband of the woman? The man that takes the woman's virginity, whether by choice or force. God means this stuff. So yeah, technically, according to God, I've never been married. According to man, I've been married and divorced 3 times, but you know, I've never been married in the eyes of God, it seems. I've never known a woman in my life or whatever that I dated or something like that, got to know, that was a virgin. Maybe when I was in elementary school, but I don't think that counts. Well, I mean, of course it doesn't count because I didn't do anything with him. Who knows? I don't know. Whatever. I'm just saying, it's like this country has went far, far away from God in every way possible, it seems. And it's like the church is not teaching how to come back to the Lord. It's like they're afraid of missing out on some money in the offering plate, it seems like. They don't want to offend the congregation that the people leave the church. And I'm sitting there like, well, you don't really have a church if you don't have godly people in it. God says, depart and be ye separate of the world. That's a commandment. You're not supposed to be like the rest of the world. It doesn't matter what the world's doing today. You're still supposed to be godly. Doesn't matter if you agree with the rules or not. We still have to obey them. Jesus even calls for that. It's a commandment. Anyways, let's continue on here. I think we're going back to 34, verse 34. Unto this day they do after the former manners. They fear not the Lord, neither do they after their statutes, or after their ordinances, or after the law and commandment which the Lord commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel. I'm already in 40 minutes here. So I knew this was going to take a while and stuff. There's going to be some rabbit trails going down and everything else. But let's go ahead and finish this out. I've spoken a lot of this, on all this stuff. So, verse 35. With whom the Lord had made a covenant and charged them, saying, Ye shall not fear other gods, nor bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. Hence again, most of this nation is serving false gods or other gods. Verse 36. But the Lord who brought you up out of the land of Egypt with great power and a stretched out arm, him shall ye fear, and him shall ye worship, and to him shall ye do sacrifice. Now, I know part of the law says we're not to do any blood sacrifices. That we're not under that no more. But we are to still do sacrifices. We're to sacrifice friendships if we have to. If they're trying to bring you away from God, you're supposed to stay away from that friend now. Because that's not a friend if they're trying to take you away from the Lord. If you're trying to serve the Lord and they're trying to pull you away, you may have to sacrifice that friend. Jesus even said he came here to turn brothers against brothers, sons against fathers, mothers against daughters, daughters against mothers, stuff like that. Because, parents and everything else, they're going to try to keep you from serving the Lord. And sometimes you got to walk away. You got to make sacrifices to serve God. Sometimes you're going to have to quit a job. You may have to give up certain fancy cars and stuff because it's not something you should have. That you have it for the wrong reason. Stuff like that. We're still called to make sacrifices. Maybe not blood sacrifices of animals and stuff, but God expects sacrifices from us. Throw stuff out of our lives that we shouldn't have. Quit going to certain places, quit watching certain movies, quit listening to certain musics, quit dressing in certain clothing, stuff like that. We're to make sacrifices. Still to this day. Verse 37. And the statutes and the ordinances and the law and the commandment which he wrote for you, ye shall observe to do forevermore, and ye shall not fear other gods. And the covenant that I have made with you, ye shall not forget, neither shall ye fear other gods. So we've got to remember that Jesus is part of that movement of the Israelites, he says, brought them up out of the land of Egypt. So in a way, he brought us out of the land of Egypt as well, because we are adopted children through Christ. We fall into that same area, because that's how we're grafted in through the tree of the Israelites is through Christ, which is a descendant of David through Mary. Joseph was the human being that helped raise him and provide for him, but it was through the birth through his mother, which was impregnated by God, spiritually, spiritually he impregnated her. Wasn't by the original means, of course, but she was still, it was called the virgin birth for a reason. But still, they're born through the Israelites, But, continue on here. But the Lord your God ye shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the hand of your enemy, of all your enemies. Howbeit they did not hearken, but they did after their former manner. So these nations feared the Lord and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers, so do they unto this day. And there's kind of stuff going on like that today. I've already explained stuff of that. So that's the end of this lesson here. Yeah, it's almost 50 minutes. I just did one chapter. As I said, there's a lot of stuff in there. That's why I just want to do one chapter. God also told me, because, you're just going to do one chapter tonight. I'm like, it's going to be done quickly. No, it's not. I said, there's a lot of stuff to take in with God's Word, and a lot of areas where we got to really pay attention, and they'll speak to us greatly. If we just read it and study it, and let God speak to us. So, I'm going to go ahead and end this lesson here. So remember to pray. If you got some of these strongholds in life and you're serving other gods and this, that, and the other, got to get rid of them. Pray to God that he helps point things out to you, what you need to get rid of out of your life, what you need to hold on to, what you need to get rid of. Remember, one thing I keep forgetting to say that I used to always talk about, we're called to live a pilgrim's life. Until he puts us in a place to grow roots at and to stay in one place, we're to be ready to move anytime he tells us to. A lot of people don't understand that. It's like, you may grow up on a farm, a family farm. He may say, get rid of it, and I want you to, if you're in Kansas, I may want you to move to Nebraska and do something there. It's like, what? He may call for it. You're to live a pilgrim's life. It's whatever he needs you to do, not what you want to. That's why Jesus even says, pick up your cross and follow me. Die to yourself. Die to the world. You're born again through Christ. Now do as Christ commands. As long as you're following the Lord, you're always following right. It's when you're not following the Lord, that's when you're following wrong. So we got to make sure we keep in prayer on that to make sure we're staying on the straight and narrow. And also we got to watch our friends and stuff, or the congregation, people in the congregation. We got to watch the churches and say, hey, we got to stay on the straight and narrow. We're being misled. We got to sometimes, boom, lock up the brakes, stop completely, put it in reverse, back up. You got to do it right, because if you're doing it wrong, it's not only are you guilty for doing wrong, anybody you mislead doing it the wrong way, you're guilty of their sins as well. Because you caused them to sin. Anyways. Prayer. We need it. Got to do it. Keeps you close to God, the Holy Spirit, Christ, all of it. We got to pray for people that is lost. We got to, pray for our family, our friends. Pray for these governments, Pray for politicians to get right with God and stuff, Just because you pray for somebody doesn't mean you're asking for them to have a blessed life. A lot of times we're praying for them for their hearts to get right with God, because Like that Ruth Getterberg, that Supreme Court Justice. Boom. That was a woman that put herself in authority over men. Sin against God right there. She is not in heaven. She helped legalize abortions and did everything she could to keep them legalized. That's murdering of babies. She is not in heaven. She died lost, doing wrong. Because she was lied to somewhere. And so she went with the lie instead of following the truth. That's the type of prayer we got to start doing, is to help save these people from themselves, from the lie. So, until next time, God bless, good night, and goodbye.